And we've got 1 or 2 people still joining in, which is no problem.
Okay, I just have to listen to this as well.
Okay, well, listen, guys, that's just gone 2 minutes past, so we will get started. Well, first of all, thank you very much for everyone tuning in tonight. Tonight it will be with myself, Neil Alcorn, a Rugby Development Officer in the North East region. We have Joy Sparks, who will be leading the presentation tonight, and we have Dan McGuigan as well, who will be on the call too. So there's 1 or 2, they're still adding. All we ask is when you come on, guys, if we can mute ourselves as we go, and if you want to, you can have your video off. There's no problem. We will record the webinar, and we will hopefully get it up on our website for you to get access to. So I'll go through the first slide here, and then we'll let Joy tear away. So again, welcome for everybody who's just joined in. Thank you for this. This is the Under 8s P4 regulations webinar. As I said there, that the webinar will be recorded. And then it kind of drops out. Turn your video off. It could also help. And just during the call, if everyone can be on mute, that would be brilliant. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, just fire it in the chat box, and we will talk through at the end. So we'll let Joy go through her presentation. After the presentation, we'll have about 5-10 minutes at the end to go through over the questions. So Joy, over to you.
Great, thank you, Neil. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. You hear me, Neil? Yeah. Perfect. Okay, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining in tonight. As Neil said, we're looking at the under 8, that's the P4 age group. So my name obviously is Joy Sparks. I'm the regional lead for the southeast of the province, and I'm just going to take you through for the next 20 minutes the under 8 recommendations. So basically the reason for this evening, many of you hopefully do know what it's about. For those of you who don't, it's really an understanding that COVID hasn't gone away, and therefore we as coaches have a responsibility to ensure that we create a safe environment for all our players, for all our parents and all our other volunteers. So pretty much what we're trying to look at is minimising the risk, reducing the risk of this virus, and how we as coaches in our clubs and schools can do that in a positive manner. Really, this has all come about. We have all been out in clubs and schools. Some of you may have seen us about in clubland and schools. And really, just from speaking to coaches there, and from a working group that we have, and from our own mini conveners and forums, that we've got a lot of feedback from coaches who maybe are unsure of what to do, you know, what's safe, what's not safe. So really, this has come from that as well, and from talking to those guys and how we can maybe make things a bit safer and better in terms of our clubs and schools and players. Last thing then is we have an opportunity here to try and trial some variations of the games. That's not only just in our training, but also in matches, where we can hopefully, with the forefront of our mind, have player, you know, involvement, increased player development at the forefront of all that we do. So really what we're trying to do is maybe lead from the front. This is the first province that's actually going to try this. So it's a new norm, but we're obviously wanting to try and use this as an opportunity to develop and to provide recommendations at this time. If anybody has any questions, I know we had some coming through, please just put them into the chat, just so as you know. Okay guys, so really what we're looking at then are 2 main areas for under 8s and under 4 or P4s. So the first one really is numbers, and then we're looking at tackle and ruck. So within the virus, obviously it can be spread 2 main ways really in rugby. The first is social distancing, which is very difficult, as we know, to prevent in a game of rugby, which is about invasion. But what we want to try and do is try and reduce that risk, that the number of players that we have on a team at one time. Secondly, then the second risk really is looking at face-to-face contact, and it obviously, as we know, increases the risk of the virus spreading. And there's 3 main areas in which that can happen in rugby. and that's tackle, ruck, and obviously in set piece. And obviously for this age group, we're not going to obviously need to talk about set piece. So firstly then, looking at numbers in the game. So this is the first area we're going to explore in terms of the impact and what impact that reduced numbers could have in terms of social distancing, so improved social distancing, and also in the development and improved development and learning of our players. So what we're going to have a look at is, we're going to go through a couple of videos in a second. We're maybe going to try and get some conversation if possible, but I appreciate we're sort of tight for time in this one. But with regards to numbers in the game, the way we feel in rugby development is by reducing numbers in the game, making games more small-sided with numbers of players, that we feel that that will not only obviously reduce the risk of the virus spreading, but also improve our players in terms of development and learning. The more touches that they can have on the ball, the more opportunity they can have to play, will hopefully lead to a better enjoyment of the game and better learning for our players. So that's really the purpose of the numbers. So currently what we're looking at in terms of regulations, so there are a few regulations, as you all well know, if you're dealing with this age group, is maximum numbers per team is 8. They obviously stipulate in the RFU there is that numbers can vary from 4-a-side to 8 or 10-a-side. And what our recommendation from Ulster Rugby is maximum numbers 4v4 or 5v5. Now we appreciate 100% that there's a lot of clubs out there that haven't got many coaches, and they couldn't possibly do that to do with those numbers or to do with the facilities that they have. They might be short with regards to pitch space and being able to have a lot of games going. And as I say, we perfectly understand that. But for those clubs, schools that can facilitate those reduced numbers, we would encourage you to look at that in terms of obviously the recommendations and the reasons what we're outlining. So I just want to bring up, and hopefully this will play, and I'm sure Neil or Darren will let me know if it's not playing right. What I want you to look at is a current 8v8 game, and this is a P4 game, so it's really relatable to obviously this webinar. And what I want you to ask yourself question-wise is, what does social distancing look like in this game? Is it playing there, guys? Yep. Okay, so as we can see, both teams have bunched around the ball, all the spaces in the wide channel. So we look to have had probably about 14 kids there in a small space. So in terms of social distancing, you know, what does it look like? We go forward here by this player, but again, as we see too often, a lot of bunching. So there's probably at least about 12 players in a very, very tight space. So in terms of social distancing again, and trying to reduce the spread, you know, there's a lot of numbers there, and obviously that's not what we're looking to try and achieve here. Okay, so not only obviously social distancing, which is a big thing here, we're also looking at the involvement of players. And I don't know if you counted or were able to count, but in that 1-minute clip, and if we had the chat box obviously and more time, we'd probably put this into it, but we had 5 passes of the ball, and I think 4 players were involved in that whole game of that 1 minute, which shows that there's another 12 players who haven't had a touch in the ball yet. So what does their involvement look like? What is their learning going home? It's not very much, and this is one of the reasons why we're looking to reduce numbers. So if we move then and look at a 4v4 game, and this is our recommendation, and as I say, it'll all boil down to numbers of coaches and facilities that you have. But if you just look at this and just look at the difference in terms of players and maybe a wee bit better social distancing and player involvement. So I'm just going to play this. It's just over a minute and a minute long. So as you can see, players are still getting a bit bunched there, but due to there being so few of them, it's obviously a lot safer. There's good go forward, ball in two hands there. Good sidestep. And there was good support, but obviously it just wasn't passed in time. But again, there's plenty of space, there's plenty of moving, plenty of going forward. And most of all, that those kids are getting loads of touches on the ball. I think every single player in that just over a minute clip got the ball, and there were over double the amount of passes that there was in the last game with the reduced numbers. Okay, so moving on then, in terms of the numbers. So the main reason for us recommending to reduce your player numbers to 4v4 or 5v4, as we've mentioned, is to reduce the spread of COVID. Obviously appreciating that the virus is still very much there, and what we can do as coaches, as volunteers, to try and reduce that. Secondly, obviously, as we've mentioned, it develops players' core skills. So as you saw in the last clip, players were going forward, good sidestep, good handling, catching, and focusing on those skills, and really homing in on those skills and developing those. There's more opportunity for decision making as well. So because the kids are getting more touches on the ball, they're actually being more creative, they're having to make more decisions, and overall, lastly, that'll improve their development and hopefully make the game more fun, because they're actually being more interactive and active, and they're hopefully learning and developing as a result of that. So that's pretty much the numbers. Just in terms of that summary then, the changes that we recommend is 4v4 or 5v5, depending on obviously the number of coaches we have and in terms of facility space as well. Okay, so moving on there to tackle and ruck, okay, the second area. So currently the recommendations or the regulations for tackle and ruck, tackle height is waist high and penalties for tackles above the waist, and we'll look at that video clip in a second. Very controversial, but 100% in red, which should be here, is ripping and tackling the ball. It is not allowed and will be penalised, and that is all levels of mini rugby. Okay, and it's a big thing that we always get, and I'll obviously go over why we obviously don't allow that shortly, but obviously we will penalise if that is the case. Handoff, not allowed. Okay, we're trying to encourage our kids to carry the ball in two hands, better passing options off both sides. The ruck currently, we have under 8, no more than 3, and obviously 5-second use it or lose it rule applies, so they shouldn't be in there for that long. The recommendation there, the only recommendation that we are looking to change is on the ruck, and we're looking to have no ruck at all in under 8 rugby. Okay, so no ruck at all, and we'll go through that in a second. Before that, we'll look at just the tackle. As I said, we want to penalise high tackles. We want coaches to, really try and home in the good skills, tackle tech of getting low. We look obviously to hit around the shorts, good leg drive, and bringing the player to ground safely. We're going to look here at what a high tackle is. It's not really that obvious, but hopefully it'll be self-explanatory as we go through. The first one, it's a bit of a hand around the shoulder, another hand around the shoulder. For that, you as a coach stroke referee would recommend that the player, obviously goes lower around the shorts next time, and if they do it again, maybe look at a penalty. But if there's any swinging, if there's any pushing, or if there's a tackle that's around the ball or bringing a player to ground high, that should be an automatic penalty. But for what you just saw, as in just a hand, at least the player's trying to go for the player. For that, we'd just recommend a warning, but next time it would be a clear penalty. So a good tackle example, and hopefully you'll see this for what we're looking for to encourage the good tackle technique. So the player with the ball has got the ball in two hands, and the tackler, it's a good, okay, arm wrap, good shoulder hit. Okay, they could probably pump the legs a bit more, but it's also a good offload in contact by the attacker, so fair play to them. So that's really what we're looking at in terms of encouraging our players to tackle nice and low, good shoulder contact, where that badge is in the short should be the main sort of site that they should be looking at, because we appreciate, especially at P4, that this is the first time that they'll be doing tackling. So we really, as coaches, want to be making sure that we really reinforce what a good tackle looks like. And if there's any ripping on the ball or any high sort of tackle on the ball, that should be automatically penalized, because obviously if you're going for the ball or you're far too high, so that's obviously not good tackle technique, which we're obviously trying to reinforce. Looking then at the ruck, as I say, we're going to look at what it looks like at the moment, and hopefully you can see it is a bit of a mess, but I think it looks like that in reality as well, as you'll see. Okay, so looking at that clip, it was pretty obvious again, a lot of bunching. And in terms of obviously the situation we face ourselves in with COVID, the question that I would ask, is there high or low face-to-face contact opportunities? And there it would be pretty high in my mind. There are a lot of bodies, in the breakdown area and around the breakdown area, which is increasing that face-to-face risk. So obviously our recommendation with no ruck, there would be only the ball carrier and the tackler in that space alongside the scrum half, which would, reduce that risk a lot. Okay, so just looking at that no ruck, it's a very quick clip here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it, but it does emphasize obviously the no bodies going in, with just the ball carrier, the tackle made, and then next in is a scrum half and balls away. Okay, so hopefully you will by that be able to maybe reduce bunching a little bit, because hopefully players, if they know they're not going to get the ball because there's no ruck allowed, hopefully then as coaches you will be able to encourage them to stay out from that area and to obviously get into space, which hopefully will be able to reduce that sort of a lot of bodies around contact and bunching. So just a summary then in terms of the tackle and the ruck. Again, this is obviously recommended to try and reduce the spread of the virus, to also develop players' core skills, to obviously create more decision making by obviously players playing more, there to be a bit more continuity. If there's no ruck, the ball should come out quicker, and obviously that continuity should be higher in terms of that and decision making. And then obviously more active players, increasing their development, learning and enjoyment. So the summary then for the tackle, there's no changes. Okay, still should be below the waist and the same regulations apply. And for the ruck, the change is no ruck. Okay, as I've said, no ruck to reduce face-to-face and to try obviously and develop players better, get quicker ball and more opportunity for players to learn and develop. The final steps then from me, guys, and then we'll take any questions if we have any. I know some come in prior to the starting. Next steps, we're going to review this again in January. So what we would ask you guys to do, some of you hopefully have come to this with an open mind, and some are maybe glad to hear the recommendations that we're putting to you today. So we would hope that you as coaches would possibly implement some or all of these. And obviously we would like to see that and maybe go out and video some good practice, or just generate some discussion of how that's going. So through that then we'll speak to our mini conveners with meetings, and obviously communicate with them and the working party to see where we go. We also have a one-pager with the recommendations, literally as it says on one page, which I'll show you at the end in a couple of slides. So a quick summary then, as I said, the recommendations have really been brought to you tonight just because of what's going on, and to try and prevent the virus spreading as much as we can. We really appreciate the work that you guys in the clubs and the schools are doing, and the safety plans that you've put in place to allow rugby to go on, which is fantastic when you see other countries and other sports having to close down community rugby. So, you know, a big thank you from us and the rugby development staff for all the hard work that you do in obviously ensuring that the rugby goes ahead safely in this current climate. I want to stress though that the recommendations that we, you know, have for you this evening, they're not enforced. You know, the recommendations are just there, as I say, as the guidelines, and just because we believe we have an opportunity to try and obviously trial new things to enhance player learning and to maybe try and reduce that face-to-face and enhance social distancing at this time. The timescale, we'll look to maybe roll this out from now until December. So as I say, if you want to roll this out from now in your clubs, if you've got any training or matches coming up, because we believe a new season, a new norm, and it'll enhance player development. A couple of resources, if you want to take a snap of this, but I believe that this will go onto the website that we have on the Ulster Rugby website, and you can access, you know, obviously the regulations and also the resources that we have for many coaches. Some of you may have tuned in for the webinars that the three of us did a number of weeks back, where we obviously provided you, as many coaches, with material and resources around season plans, as well as other bits and pieces. And if you missed that, you can access that by clicking on the top link under Ulster Rugby Resources. And the second link is a new website, or new link for a website that we're currently in the process of setting up. So we can obviously have as many resources as we can to assist you guys in obviously sessions and other content for many, all many stages as you go through your coaching. As I mentioned, the one pager, this is it, that we will also have in that resource document. And obviously under 8 is what you're focusing on. So numbers 4v4, no ruck, tackles obviously, no above waist and no ripping of the ball, and scrum and line out obviously are not applicable. So guys, if there's any, I don't know if there's any chat coming through, but we can take some questions if we have got time. I'll obviously ask Neil or Darren, have we got anything coming through there, guys, or anything you want to add?
Yeah, we had a question coming through, and I suppose it was in relation to the tackle, and it's all very well, and we've put up what we'd like to see regards how a tackle's done, and we all know that this is a difficult skill to coach. So one of the coaches asked about tackle drills, and appreciate the question, and it's actually a very good question, and we don't unfortunately have time to do that tonight. But what we have is this resource library that we're going to produce, and we have a lineup of videos that we've taken over the last few years that's applicable to mini rugby, not youth rugby, not adult, but these kids who are actually trying to learn and play this game. So we'll be posting that up. If I just may add to Joy, what she talked about tonight is we will be, you know, try and emphasize what we're trying to do, and especially reducing, you know, the spread of COVID, is try and have a go at those 4v4, 5v5 games, because again, it gets people more touches of the ball. And then you still have your opportunity to do individual coaching, you know, like ruck, or sorry, not be ruck, but tackle technique. What we want for you guys at under 8s is to be able to run around, catch, pass, tackle, and score lots of tries. So in relation to the tackle drill and any other drills, a lot of that will be put up on our resource library. So that's currently in development at the minute, and we will follow that up with sending out those links.
We have one more question there from DC. Can the one pager be sent out to all on the call? Yes, what we'll do is for the one pager, we will send an email out with that attached. There's no problem. We'll send that to everyone on the call who's registered. Regarding the actual recording of the webinar, we're hopeful that we can get it up on the website. If there's any questions, we can hopefully try and send it across. We transfer the presentations are quite large with the videos in it, so we can't email them, but we'll try and get as much information out as possible. If there's any other questions you would like from tonight or anything, the best thing for us is if you contact your regional staff, your rugby development officers, regional lead, link in with your mini conveners. They'll have all the details, and you'll get also details on the website as well. Is there, Joy, anything you want to add at all?
Yeah, we just did have a couple of questions I did see coming in from those that signed up. It was on disrupted or distracted kids, and although this isn't, you know, really looking at that, is more looking at recommendations, but just to maybe pick up on that just for a minute. I suppose if you can manage to keep your sessions as active and as interactive as possible, hopefully the kids won't get distracted easily. Normally, if you're maybe trying to set up, or if you're not maybe flowing through a session, that gives kids time to switch off. Also, you know, if you have another coach there and there is a kid being really disruptive, maybe take them off, take the other coach to maybe, you know, do a couple of things with them, or else just let them cool down for a bit. But yeah, it is probably going to be part and parcel of sessions. If they're far too disruptive where they start to spoil it for other kids, I think that's where you need to take action, and perhaps maybe have a word with parents or the like. But it's just, and I appreciate there's a couple of questions coming in around that, and I didn't want to ignore it from those guys who might be on the call. But as Neil says, guys, please feel free to pick up the phone or email to any of the development staff. We will happily help you with any queries you have. As I say, we hope that for those who have found this useful tonight, that you do implement it, and if so, even drop us you know, drop us a mail, and we'll come out and maybe video it and get some sort of good practice and some good you know, feedback hopefully from you guys to be able to take forward. But if there's nothing else, coming through in the chat, guys, thank you very much on behalf of the three of us, and appreciate your time this evening.